here's how I like to make my rice. I have a pot, and in the bottom I've got just enough oil to cover the bottom of the pan. I'm making 2 cups of rice because that seems to be good for us and for the size pan I've got here. 2 cups of rice, and I like to use converted or parboiled rice. And then I'm going to add some pasta. So just a second, let me get the lid off of this. Okay, here's my pasta. Now how much pasta do you add? Well, since I'm only going to add, you add twice as much water as you do rice. I'm only going to add about, and you don't have to add pasta. I'm only going to add about that much pasta. And you can see this is the, oh, it's got a name. All pasta's got a name, but I sure don't remember what the name of this one is. And that's just to make it more like a pilaf. So then I turn on the heat and I turn it on high. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to saute this rice in that oil. And you want the oil, you don't want there to be too much oil in there, but you want enough to coat all the rice that you've got. So now when this gets nice and toasty brown and ready for me to add the water, I'll be back. See how that oil is just coated all those pieces of rice? That's what you want. If you've got too much oil, you can always pour it out. And if you don't have enough, you can always add some. But now remember, your rice is always 2 to 1 on water ratio. And for us, 2 cups of rice, and that would be 4 cups of water, seems to work just fine. And you have to kind of gauge your oil to how much rice you're making at the time. If you're making 1 cup, of course you use less. For this pot, and this is the pot I always use to make my rice, covering just the bottom of the pan with oil seems to work just fine. So you'll have to adjust your oil to the amount of rice that you have. Okay, so now my rice is nice and toasty brown looking. I have 2 cups of rice, about 1/4 of a cup of pasta pieces, and I'm going to add 4 cups water because your rice is always 2 to 1. And I toasted this. I did not rinse the rice before I fried it, but I fried this in just enough oil to cover the rice pieces. And as you can see, it's nice and toasty. You stir it constantly because you don't want some pieces to burn until you get a nice toasty color. And see how it's looking almost translucent. And you can see the white pieces in there. And there's no oil pooling on the bottom of the pan, so I know I have the right amount. So now I'm going to add my water. And I'm going to turn it up to high. I'm going to make sure it's stirred. I did not add any salt or any spices to this rice. And the reason for that is I don't know how I'm going to use this rice. Now, I do have plans to make some soup later on in the day, but I don't know what I'm going to do with the rest of it. So I'm not going to add any spices or anything. If you wanted to add spices, now would be the time to do it. You can add onions, you can add garlic, you can add whatever you like. But for right now, I'm not adding anything. I'm not even going to add salt, because whatever this rice is going into will be salted or peppered or sugared or whatever the case might be. So now I'm going to wait for it to come up to a boil. Okay, it's coming to a boil. Now, to recap, I'm using a thick bottom pan. That works the best. Added just enough oil to cover the bottom of the pan. I used 2 cups of rice. Fried that in the oil until it got a nice nutty brown. I added no salt or other spices, but just before you put in the water is when you would add other spices. I added a little bit of pasta, and I stirred it constantly to keep the rice from burning. See those nice nutty pieces in there? This rice will taste very nutty, but it'll be, you can use this rice in any recipe now. Notice also that I used a flat spatula so that I could scrape the bottom of the pan and make sure nothing was sticking. Now, it's coming to a nice, good, full boil. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the lid on, and I'm going to turn the gas down as low as I can get it. Okay, let's see. Yeah, that's it. Now that's a thick bottom pan, and now we just wait 15-20 minutes, and in about 15 minutes I'll come back and check it, see how it's doing. Okay, it's been about 15 minutes. Here's my rice. It's all nice and fluffy. There's no water left on the bottom, and it's almost gone too long because it's a little bit stuck there, but this is just fine. See? Here we go. See? Just perfect. Now this rice, I might leave it on the stove all day today, and we'll pick at it, have butter and rice or whatever, but see, and it's just barely sticking to the bottom of the pan, which means that I let it go maybe 5 minutes too long. But still all nice and separate. It has no salt or pepper or spices in it, so I can use this in anything, and I'm getting ready to make some soup.